Fire engulfed the alien vessels, debris raining down upon the Valiant's hull as the massive warships traded blows. With a crew of just over 100 and a fleet of only 20 ships, Captain Caleb Brown and the brave humans of the United Earth Fleet faced off against over 1,000 enemy warships belonging to the ruthless Qatarian Empire. The alien bastards were hell-bent on enslaving Earth, with surrender not an option for the vastly outnumbered humans. Caleb gritted his teeth, his knuckles white as he gripped the command console. Clouds of metal shards and vaporized alien bodies filled the dark void of space as kinetic slugs, railgun rounds, and nuclear missiles tore into the Qatarian warships. Harsh red emergency lights bathed the Valiant's CIC. "Sir, 30 more contacts just jumped in off the port side. We're getting swarmed here," Caleb's XO reported, sweat beading on his forehead. "Steady as she goes. They want to take our planet, our families, not while we're still breathing," Caleb said, staring at the tactical display with a cold fury in his eyes. The battle raged. Human ships detonated in blinding flashes as the Qatarians pressed the assault, but not before taking dozens of alien vessels with them in blasts of nuclear hellfire. The Valiant shuddered, damage reports flooding in. "Captain, I'm picking up a strange energy reading from that alien wreck. Something powerful," Science Officer Davis called out. Caleb narrowed his eyes. Boarding an enemy vessel mid-battle was beyond risky, but that energy signature was like nothing he'd seen. If there was even a chance of some alien tech that could help, he had to try. Earth needed a miracle. He turned to his Marines. "Sergeant, get a shuttle prepped. We're going to grab whatever that is." As the armored figures rushed to the hangar, Caleb watched another human ship vanish in an explosion of white-hot shrapnel and burning atmosphere. His gut twisted. This was a fight they couldn't win, not alone. He could only pray this alien artifact was the key to humanity's salvation, because if it wasn't, Earth would fall, and everything he held dear would be lost. Caleb's armored boots clanged against the deck of the hangar as he raced toward the waiting shuttle. His Marines had already prepped it, engines thrumming with power. They had to secure that artifact before the Qatarians realized its importance. But even as he boarded, his mind raced with the implications. What the hell kind of energy reading was that? He'd never seen anything like it on Alliance scanners, and in the middle of a battle for humanity's survival, it had to be something big. The shuttle rocketed out of the Valiant's hangar, dodging debris and enemy fire as it streaked toward the derelict alien ship. Caleb gripped his rifle tighter, preparing to board. Back on Earth, the wail of sirens filled the United Earth Council chamber. President Michael Thompson stood at the podium, his face grim as he addressed the assembled councillors. "We've just received word from the front. The Valiant has engaged the Qatarian fleet, but they're outnumbered 50 to 1. Captain Brown believes he's discovered some kind of alien artifact aboard a damaged enemy ship. We don't know what it is, but it could be the key to our survival." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "I'm authorizing the immediate dispatch of a science team to analyze this artifact. We need to know what we're dealing with. Dr. Andrew Chen, you'll lead the team. Gather your people and get to the spaceport. A ship is waiting." Dr. Chen nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities as he hurried from the room. An alien artifact powerful enough to turn the tide of the war? It seemed impossible, but he had to find out. As Chen's team raced to unlock the artifact's secrets, Caleb and his Marines stormed the corridors of the derelict Qatarian vessel. Emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the bulkheads. The ship groaned and shuddered, venting atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. They found the artifact in what looked like a lab, connected to a maze of conduits and power cables. It pulsed with an otherworldly glow, thrumming with barely contained energy. Caleb stared at it, transfixed. What the hell was this thing? But there was no time to ponder. Alarms blared as the Marines detected incoming Tarian ships. They had to move. Caleb watched from the Valiant's bridge as the battered remnants of his fleet regrouped with reinforcements. 500 Earth ships now stood ready to take the fight back to the Tarians. His first officer, Jack Mitchell, conned the Valiant with a steady hand. The newly promoted Admiral Brown gazed out at the assembled fleet, a mix of pride and grim determination etched on his face. The artifact was aboard, secured in the depths of the ship. A comping broke the silence. It was Dr. Chen, his face pale even over the viewscreen. "Admiral, you're not going to believe this. That artifact, it's a piece of something called the Doomsday device, an ancient weapon capable of destroying entire star systems, and it's not complete. There are more pieces, scattered across the galaxy, if the Ktarians find them all." Caleb's blood ran cold. A weapon that could wipe out whole star systems in Ktarian hands? No, he wouldn't allow it. Couldn't allow it. He turned to the tactical display, now updated with coordinates extracted from the artifact, the locations of the other pieces. "Set a course for the nearest piece. Full speed. We have to find them before the Ktarians do, or this war is already lost." The fleet leapt to FTL, racing toward an unknown future, desperate to secure the pieces of a weapon that could save them or destroy them all. The fate of the galaxy now rested on the shoulders of one human admiral and his intrepid crew. And the battle for the Doomsday device had only just begun. The human fleet dropped out of FTL near a barren world orbiting a dying star. Admiral Brown had followed the coordinates from the alien artifact here to the edge of Ktarian space. As the ship's established orbit, he turned to Commander Mitchell. "Take a team down there and find that damn artifact piece. Do it quick before the Ktarians get wind of us." Mitchell nodded and gathered his Marines, including Lieutenant Davis. They boarded a shuttle and rocketed down to the planet's cracked surface. Following the artifact's energy signal, they landed near a massive stone temple jutting from the rock. The temple's cyclopean blocks were covered in alien glyphs, depicting strange creatures locked in a war that spanned galaxies. Inside the musty halls, Mitchell shone a light on a wall covered in faded murals. "Look at this. Some ancient race called the Protheans built this Doomsday device to stop something even worse. An enemy that was going to wipe them out," he said, eyes scanning the images. Davis ran a hand over the stone, wondering, what the hell were they so afraid of? A blood-red bolt sizzled over his head, exploding against the wall. Ktarian troops poured into the chamber, weapons blazing. At their head was a massive warrior in spiked armor, a vicious grin on his face. General Murloc. "For the Ktarian Empire!" Murloc roared, firing his disruptor. Mitchell and his Marines dove for cover, returning fire. Bullets and energy beams crisscrossed the chamber as the two forces clashed. Davis rolled and came up firing, dropping 2 Ktarians as their shots scorched the stone around him. "Get the artifact," Mitchell yelled, lobbing a grenade. The explosion sent Ktarians flying, their armor smoking. Davis lunged for a small pedestal at the center of the room, grabbing a glowing cylinder. As he turned to run, a disruptor bolt took him in the gut. He crashed to the floor, blood pooling beneath him. "No!" Mitchell screamed, unleashing a hail of fire at the Ktarians. He rushed to Davis's side, dragging him into cover as the lieutenant gasped for breath. "Orbital strike, danger close," Mitchell shouted into his comm. High above, Admiral Brown clenched his jaw as the plea came through. He nodded to the gunnery officer. "Light 'em up." The Valiant's cannons spoke, raining hell on the temple. The ground shook and rock shattered as the bombardment pounded the Ktarian troops. General Murloc snarled in rage as his soldiers were blown to bits around him. Fall back," he commanded, ducking a chunk of flying masonry. As the battered Tarians fled, Mitchell cradled Davis in his arms. The lieutenant pressed the artifact piece into his hand, blood bubbling from his lips. "Complete the mission," Davis whispered. Then he went still, eyes staring sightlessly at the shattered ceiling. Tears streaking his face, Mitchell carried his fallen comrade back to the waiting shuttle. They had the artifact, but the cost had been too damn high. How many more would have to die before this was over? Admiral Brown watched grimly as the shattered ground team returned. Lieutenant Davis's body laid out in the hangar. He clutched the artifact piece in his hand, the key to saving humanity from annihilation. But as he saw the devastation on Mitchell's face and Davis's empty eyes, he wondered what humanity would have left after paying this price. As Admiral Brown's fleet pressed onward in their hunt for the scattered pieces of the ancient weapon, a distress signal pierced the void. It was a human colony, New Haven, besieged by Qatarian warships that had broken off from the main enemy Armada. The colony's defenses were crumbling, its people on the verge of slaughter. Brown's jaw clenched. Every fibre of his being urged him to rush to their aid, to save those innocent lives. But the weight of the doomsday device pressed upon him, the fate of not just one colony, but all of humanity, hanging in the balance. He turned to Commander Mitchell, his eyes hard. "Take the Valiant and a squadron of our best ships. Get to New Haven and hold the line. I'll continue the search with the rest of the fleet." As the Valiant and its escort broke away, speeding toward the besieged colony, Brown watched them go, a silent prayer on his lips. They had to succeed. They had to. The Valiant dropped out of FTL, the battered domes of New Haven filling the viewscreen. Qatarian dropships swarmed the colony like locusts, disgorging hordes of armored warriors onto the scarred earth. Plasma fire and explosions lit the landscape as the colony's beleaguered defenders fought desperately to hold them back. "All hands to battle stations," Mitchell barked. "Deploy marine teams and combat drones planetside now." In the Valiant's hangar, dropships roared to life, Marines checking weapons and gear as they prepared to plunge into the hellish battlefield below. Among them was Private Alex Turner, a young soldier with fire in his eyes and courage in his heart. As the dropship screamed through the atmosphere, Turner gripped his rifle, watching the approaching maelstrom of battle. This was what he had trained for, what he had sworn to do. Protect the innocent, no matter the cost. The dropships touched down amidst the chaos, hatches slamming open. Turner and his fellow Marines charged out, kinetic rounds and plasma bolts whipping past them as they hurled themselves into the fray. A hulking Qatarian mech suit loomed before them, energy cannons spitting death. Marines scattered, desperately seeking cover, but Turner stood his ground, raising his rifle. Time seemed to slow as he lined up the shot, targeting the mech's glowing optics. He breathed out, finger tightening on the trigger. The rifle bucked in his hands, rounds sparking off the mech's armored hide. But Turner didn't relent. He fired again and again, pouring everything he had into the mechanical beast. The mech staggered, smoke pouring from rents in its plating. With a final defiant roar, Turner put a round straight through its optics. The mech toppled, crushing Tarian soldiers beneath its bulk. Turner stood over it, breathing hard, as civilians emerged from the shattered ruins, staring at their savior in awe. From the Valiant's bridge, Mitchell watched the tide of battle turn, Turner's heroic stand rallying the Marines and colony defenders. They surged forward, pushing the Qatarians back with renewed ferocity. In the ship's lab, Dr. Elizabeth Reed pored over the two recovered pieces of the doomsday device, her brow furrowed in concentration. The artifacts pulsed with an eerie light, their surfaces etched with alien script. As she ran her scans, her eyes widened. The data scrolling across her screen was unlike anything she had seen. This device, this weapon, it was more than they ever imagined. "Commander, you need to see this," she said, her voice taut with urgency. Mitchell tore his gaze from the battle below, striding over to the console. As Reed explained her findings, his blood ran cold. The doomsday device didn't just destroy stars. It could bend the very fabric of space-time, create wormholes that could swallow fleets, or allow them to strike anywhere in the galaxy in an instant. Mitchell's mind raced. If the Protheans had used this technology to escape their mysterious foe, scattering the device to keep it from their enemies' hands, the stakes had just gotten even higher. A comping broke the stunned silence. It was Admiral Brown, his face taut. "Commander, we've found the next piece. Sending coordinates now. Finish up there and rendezvous with the fleet ASAP." Mitchell nodded, steel in his eyes. "Understood, sir. We'll be there." As the transmission ended, Mitchell turned to the viewscreen, watching as the last Qatarian ships fled New Haven's orbit. They had won this battle, thanks to heroes like Private Turner. But the war was far from over. And with each piece of the doomsday device they claimed, the fate of the galaxy hung ever more precariously in the balance. The Valiant leapt to FTL, racing to rejoin the fleet, to stand once more on the front lines of this battle for survival, and on its scarred decks, a crew of heroes steeled themselves for the trials to come. The Valiant dropped out of FTL, streaks of plasma fire and explosions painting the void, as Admiral Brown's fleet clashed with the Ktarian Armada. Shattered hulls and debris littered the space around the resource-rich moon, home to the enemy's secret research base. On the Valiant's bridge, Commander Mitchell gripped the tactical console. "Admiral, we're in position. Ground teams standing by." "Get it done, Mitchell. That artifact is our top priority," Admiral Brown ordered over the comm, his voice strained as his ship shuddered under Ktarian fire. Mitchell turned to the assembled strike team in the hangar. His gaze settled on Private Turner, the hero of New Haven. "Turner, you're with me. We'll take point." The young soldier nodded, checking his rifle. "Aye, sir. Let's show these alien bastards what humanity is made of." The dropship punched through the moon's thin atmosphere, anti-aircraft fire streaking past the viewports. It touched down hard, hatches slamming open. Mitchell and Turner charged out, kinetic rounds whipping by their heads as they sprinted for the base entrance. Ktarian defenders poured from the facility, disruptors spitting deadly bolts. Turner dove into cover, popping up to put a round clean through a Ktarian's helmet. The alien dropped, ichor splattering the moon's dusty surface. "Move up, push forward," Mitchell roared, lobbing a frag grenade. The explosion sent Ktarians flying, their armor smoking. The team advanced, leapfrogging from cover to cover. Turner moved like a man possessed, his rifle barking as he cut down Ktarian after Ktarian. A hulking security bot lumbered into view, energy cannons thrumming. It unleashed a barrage of plasma, forcing the humans to scatter. Turner rolled to his feet, eyes hard. He charged straight at the bot, dodging and weaving as shots seared the air around him. Leaping onto its back, he jammed his rifle into a gap in its armor and unleashed a full auto-burst. The bot convulsed and toppled, smoke pouring from its frame. "Hell of a move, Turner," Mitchell said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Now let's crack this place open." They breached the lab, flashbangs and rifle fire echoing off the walls. Scientists screamed and cowered as the humans secured the room. And there, in a reinforced containment field, pulsed a glowing piece of the doomsday device. But that wasn't all. Mitchell scanned the consoles, his eyes widening. The Ktarians had been experimenting with the artifact's wormhole tech. Detailed plans showed coordinates for human colonies, attack vectors to strike deep in human space. "My God. Admiral, it's worse than we thought," Mitchell reported over the comm. "They were going to use this thing to hit us where we're most vulnerable." "Get that artifact and get the hell out of there," Admiral Brown responded, his voice grim. "I want every scrap of intel you can grab." As the team downloaded the data and prepped the artifact for extraction, a cold voice cut through the room. "I'm afraid that belongs to the Ktarian Empire." General Murloc strode in, flanked by his elite guards. The scarred warrior fixed Mitchell with a predatory gaze, energy blade humming to life in his grip. Turner and the others opened fire, muzzle flashes strobing in the dim lab. But Murloc's guards were fast, inhumanly fast. They closed the distance in a blur, plasma blades carving through armor and flesh. Mitchell launched himself at Murloc, combat knife in hand. The two titans clashed, blade against blade, grunting with exertion as they traded blows. Turner rushed to help, but a guard caught him in the side with a brutal slash. He cried out and fell to one knee, blood seeping between his fingers. Murloc pressed his advantage, hammering Mitchell with vicious strikes. The human commander staggered back, his knife clattering to the floor. Murloc loomed over him, blade raised for the killing blow. "Die, human filth!" A rifle barked and Murloc stumbled, a hole punched clean through his shoulder. Turner stood there, weapon smoking, his face a mask of pain and determination. With a roar, Mitchell snatched up his knife and buried it to the hilt in Murloc's chest. The Ktarian general gasped and slumped to the floor, dark blood pooling beneath him. Turner! Mitchell scrambled to the private's side, cradling his shuddering form. Hold on, soldier, we'll get you out of here. But Turner shook his head, blood flecking his lips. No, sir, I'm done. Get that artifact back to the Admiral. Complete the mission. His eyes slid shut, a final breath escaping his lungs. Mitchell bowed his head, tears cutting through the grime on his face. The remnants of the strike team gathered their fallen and the precious artifact, making their way back to the waiting dropship as the space battle raged overhead. On the Valiant's bridge, Admiral Brown watched the Tarian ships break and run, their formations shattered. It was a victory, but a costly one. As Mitchell stepped off the dropship, the artifact case clutched in his hands, Admiral Brown met his haunted gaze. Murloc? Dead, but so is Turner. He died a hero, sir. But with the artifact secured and the Tarian plans exposed, they finally had a chance to end this war once and for all. To make sure those sacrifices weren't in vain. Get that thing to Dr. Reed. I want to know exactly what the Tarians were planning. The Admiral's voice was hard, his eyes like chips of flint. And then we're going to use it to burn their empire to ash, for Turner, for Davis, for every human who gave their life to stop these bastards. Mitchell nodded, steel in his gaze. Aye, sir, let's finish this. In the Valiant's bustling hangar bay, Dr. Elizabeth Reed pored over the captured Qatarian research data, her brow furrowed with concentration. Lines of alien code scrolled across her screen, the secrets of the wormhole technology tantalizingly close. Around her, engineers and scientists worked feverishly to adapt the tech for the human fleet. Admiral Brown strode in, his face lined with determination. Status report, Doctor. We need that tech operational yesterday. Reed looked up, a glint of triumph in her eyes. We've got it, sir. We can outfit our ships with wormhole generators. The Tarians won't know what hit them. A ghost of a smile crossed Brown's weathered features. Excellent work. He turned to the gathered crew, his voice ringing out. Listen up. We've located the Qatarian homeworld, and we believe it's where they're hiding the final piece of the Doomsday device. We're going to hit them with everything we've got. This ends now. In the Valiant's armory, Commander Mitchell and Lieutenant Jason Reed prepped their gear, checking weapons and donning sleek, dark combat armor. Reed, the ship's new weapons specialist, had a steely glint in his eye as he hefted a pulse rifle. Reed grinned, a predatory look. Born ready, sir. Let's give these alien bastards a taste of human fury. The fleet assembled, a bristling wall of human defiance against the void. Wormhole generators thrummed to life, tearing holes in the fabric of space. In a blinding flash, the ships vanished, hurtling across the galaxy toward the Qatarian homeworld. They emerged in a maelstrom of fire and destruction, the Tarian defenses already engaging the sudden intruders. Lances of energy crisscrossed the void, ships blooming into fireballs on both sides. On the Valiant's bridge, Admiral Brown gripped the command console, eyes hard as he watched the battle unfold. All ships, engage at will. Hit them with everything we've got. As the space battle raged, a cloaked shuttle detached from the Valiant's belly, streaking toward the planet's surface. Inside, Commander Mitchell, Lieutenant Reed, and a hand-picked team of elite soldiers checked their weapons, faces grim beneath their helmets. The shuttle shuddered as it punched through the atmosphere, alien anti-aircraft fire streaking past the viewports. Mitchell watched the approaching cityscape, a tangle of twisting spires and pulsing lights. The team tensed, adrenaline pumping. This was it, the final push. With a bone-jarring impact, the shuttle touched down on a landing pad high atop a Qatarian spire. The hatch blew open and the team stormed out, weapons spitting fire as surprised Qatarian guards fell before their onslaught. They pushed into the building, the sounds of the raging space battle muffled by the alien walls. Reed consulted a holographic map, the artifact's signal pulsing on the display. They moved swiftly, neutralizing Qatarian resistance with brutal efficiency. Alarms blared and energy bolts filled the corridors, the acrid scent of ozone and burned flesh choking the air. As they neared the artifact's location, a blast threw them from their feet. Mitchell shook his head, ears ringing, and looked up to see a figure striding through the smoke. General Murlock, his armor gleaming in the emergency lights, a vicious grin on his face. "Did you really think it would be so easy, humans?" Reed was on his feet in an instant, pulse rifle leveled at the Qatarian general. "Easy? No, but we're not leaving without that artifact." They clashed in a whirlwind of violence, Reed's rifle barking as Murlock's energy blade carved glowing arcs through the air. The rest of the team engaged the Tarian guards pouring into the room, the confined space becoming a brutal, close-quarters brawl. Reed ducked and weaved, his armor scorched by near misses. He lashed out with the butt of his rifle, catching Murlock across the jaw. The general staggered, then roared, redoubling his assault. But Reed was relentless, a human whirlwind of fists and fury. With a final devastating blow, he sent Murlock crashing to the floor, the general's blade skittering away across the blood-slicked tiles. "Mitchell," Reed called out, tossing a belt of grenades. "Cover me!" He sprinted for the artifact, a glowing sphere pulsing with eldritch light. Mitchell and the team laid down a withering hail of suppressive fire, keeping the Qatarians at bay as Reed snatched up the artifact and raced back to their position. "Fall back," Mitchell ordered, priming a grenade. "We've got what we came for." They blasted their way back to the landing pad, the artifact secure in Reed's grip. Above them, the space battle had reached a fever pitch, the sky alight with the fires of dying ships. The team piled into the waiting shuttle, Mitchell slamming his fist on the hatch control. "Go, go, go!" The shuttle rocketed away from the spire, weaving through a gauntlet of anti-aircraft fire. Reed clutched the artifact to his chest, his face a mask of grim determination. On the Valiant's bridge, Admiral Brown watched as the Qatarian defenses crumbled, their ships falling before the relentless human assault. The wormhole generators pulsed, human ships blinking in and out of existence as they outmaneuvered the enemy. "Sir, critical damage to decks 7 through 12, an officer reported, the bridge shaking under a barrage of enemy fire. "We can't take much more of this." Brown gritted his teeth, watching the shuttle bearing Mitchell and the artifact weave its way through the maelstrom. They were so close. They couldn't fail now. The shuttle screamed into the Valiant's hangar, a hair's breadth ahead of a seething wave of destruction. The ship shuddered, alarms blaring as the damage mounted. "All hands abandon ship," Brown ordered, his voice calm amidst the chaos. "Get to the escape pods now." As the crew scrambled to evacuate the dying Valiant, Admiral Brown rallied the remaining human ships, seizing the moment of Qatarian disarray. Wormholes yawned open, human vessels leaping behind enemy lines and tearing into the Qatarian fleet's exposed flanks. The Qatarians reeled, their formation shattering under the onslaught. Human ships pressed the advantage, hounding the aliens, harrying them across the system. And then, with a final world-shattering barrage, it was over. The Qatarian homeworld, seat of their once mighty empire, fell to the human fleet. The alien ships, those that remained, scattered and fled, their will to fight broken. In the escape pods hurtling away from the shattered husk of the Valiant, the crew watched in awe as the Qatarian empire crumbled before their eyes. They had done it. Against all odds, against the might of an alien armada, they had emerged victorious. But even as they celebrated, Admiral Brown knew this was only the beginning. The Doomsday device was still out there, scattered across the stars, and humanity would not rest until every last piece was found and destroyed, ensuring the safety of their species for generations to come. The battle was won, but the war raged on, and Admiral Brown and his crew would be there on the front lines, fighting for humanity's future until the very end. In the wake of the Qatarian Empire's collapse, the victorious human fleet turned its attention to rebuilding and securing the territories they had liberated. Admiral Caleb Brown, now a legend among his people, spearheaded the effort to establish a new galactic order with humanity at the helm. But even as the celebrations echoed across the stars, a new threat stirred in the shadows. On the fringes of human space, a remote outpost suddenly went dark, its distress call cut short by an unknown assailant. Admiral Brown stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned flagship, the UES Retribution. His brow furrowed as he studied the holographic display. What do we know about the attack? Dr. Elizabeth Reed, the brilliant scientist who had unlocked the secrets of the Doomsday device, spoke up from her station. Admiral, I'm picking up strange energy readings from the outpost. It's like nothing I've ever seen. Brown's gut tightened. Dispatch a recon team, I want eyes on the ground. But even as the team departed, reports flooded in from across human space. More outposts hit, more lives lost. The enemy struck with ruthless precision, their technology far surpassing anything the Qatarians had fielded. They called themselves the Sithari. In the Retributions lab, Dr. Reed pored over the data from the attacks, her face pale. Admiral, these weapons, they're not just advanced, they're impossible. Brown leaned in, his eyes hard. What do you mean? A chill ran down Brown's spine. The Doomsday device. Reed nodded, her voice trembling. I was wrong about its purpose. The Protheans didn't create it to fight an enemy. They created it to contain one. She brought up a holographic image, a writhing mass of darkness that seemed to consume the very light around it. The Void Wraith, an entity of pure malevolence and hunger. It devours worlds, consumes civilizations. The Protheans sacrificed everything to imprison it within the device. Brown's mind raced, and now that we've reassembled it, and he had to make a choice. Use the device to destroy the Void Wraith, even if it meant annihilating countless innocents in the process, or find another way to contain the entity, to lock it away forever. Brown's jaw tightened as he stared out at the stars, a battlefield waiting to ignite. The Sithari were coming, puppets dancing on the strings of an ancient evil. And the fate of the galaxy hung on the choice of one man, one ship, against the encroaching darkness. In the heart of the Retribution's science lab, Admiral Brown paced, his brow furrowed. The weight of the galaxy pressed down on him as the Void Wraith's shadow grew longer. He turned to Dr. Samantha Clark, the ship's new science officer, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Doctor, tell me you found something. Anything that can help us stop this thing. Dr. Clark looked up from the ancient Prothean texts she'd been poring over, a glint of excitement in her gaze. Admiral, I think I have. The Protheans spoke of a weapon called the Celestial Forge. It has the power to reshape matter and energy on a cosmic scale. If we can find it, we might be able to use it to seal the Void Wraith back into its prison without the Doomsday device. Brown leaned in, his heart pounding. Where is it? How do we find it? Clark's excitement dimmed. That's the problem. The location is hidden in a series of riddles and clues scattered across the galaxy. It won't be easy to find. Brown straightened, resolve hardening his features. Easy or not, we have to try. The Void Wraith grows stronger every day. We're running out of time. He tapped his comm. Commander Mitchell, Lieutenant Reed, report to the briefing room and find Zaxxon. We have a mission. Minutes later, the team assembled, the air thick with tension. Brown laid out the plan, the desperate gamble they were about to undertake. Mitchell nodded, his jaw set. We'll find the forge, Admiral, whatever it takes. Reed checked his weapons, a grim smile on his face. The Sithari won't know what hit them. Zaxxon, the enigmatic Sithari defector, stood silent, his eyes haunted. Brown met his gaze, a question in his eyes. You're with us on this, Zaxxon? No second thoughts? The alien nodded, his voice a low rasp. I am with you, Admiral, to the end. Brown clasped his shoulder, a gesture of trust. Good, because we're going to need all the help we can get. The Retribution shuddered as it leapt into FTL, the stars blurring into streaks of light. In the heart of the ship, a small, desperate hope kindled, a flicker of light against the encroaching darkness. The team's first stop was a desolate world on the fringes of known space, its surface scoured by the winds of a dying star. Ancient Prothean ruins jutted from the cracked earth, their once proud towers reduced to crumbling stone. As the shuttle touched down, kicking up clouds of rust-colored dust, Mitchell surveyed the landscape, his eyes hard. All right, people. Stay sharp. We don't know what's waiting for us out there. They picked their way through the ruins, Dr. Clark consulting her Prothean texts, searching for the first clue to the forge's location. Reed kept watch, his rifle at the ready, while Zaxxon scouted ahead, his alien senses attuned to any hint of danger. Suddenly, Clark let out a cry of triumph. "Here, I've found it." She pointed to a series of glyphs carved into a crumbling wall, the symbols glowing with an eerie blue light. As she touched them, a hidden door ground open, revealing a dark tunnel leading into the bowels of the earth. Mitchell checked his weapon, his face grim. "Looks like that's our cue, let's move." They descended into the darkness, the tunnel walls pulsing with the same eerie light as the glyphs. The air grew thick and heavy, a sense of ancient malevolence pressing down on them. And then they heard it, a skittering, chittering sound like 1,000 insects crawling over stone. Reed spun, his rifle snapping up. From the shadows they came, twisted insectoid creatures, their carapaces glistening in the dark, Prothean guardians left to protect the secrets of the forge. Mitchell opened fire, the tunnel flashing with the strobe of muzzle flashes. "Light 'em up!" The team formed a circle, blasting the creatures as they swarmed forward. Ichor splattered the walls, the air thick with the stench of burning chitin. Zaxxon moved like a blur, his alien blade carving through the guardians, their severed limbs twitching on the ground. Clark stayed in the center, her eyes wide with fear, clutching the Prothean texts to her chest. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The last guardian twitched and lay still, its compound eyes staring sightlessly at the ceiling. Mitchell lowered his rifle, breathing hard. "Everyone all right?" They approached, the wall glowing with the same eerie script. As Clark translated, her eyes widened. Reed shook his head, a wry smile on his face. "The heart of a dying star, of course, because this couldn't be easy." Mitchell holstered his weapon, his eyes hard. "Easy or not, that's our next stop. Let's get back to the ship and plot a course." As they emerged from the ruins, the wind howling across the desolate plain, Zaxxon paused, his head cocked as if listening to a distant sound. "They're coming, the Sithari, they know we're here." Mitchell cursed, his hand going to his comm. "Admiral, we need extraction now, the Sithari are onto us." As the shuttle raced toward them, the team could see the distant shapes of Sithari ships, their angular silhouettes cutting across the dying sun. They leapt aboard, the hatch slamming shut as the shuttle rocketed into the sky. In the distance, the Sithari ships opened fire, lances of energy searing the air. But the shuttle was faster, streaking towards the safety of the Retribution. As they docked, the great ship turning to face the approaching enemy, Admiral Brown's voice crackled over the comm. "All hands, battle stations. Prepare to engage the enemy. Bring us about. Prepare to fire on my mark." The Retribution shuddered as its great engines roared to life, the ship turning ponderously to face the oncoming threat. In the heart of the ship, Mitchell and his team raced to their stations, ready to do their part in the coming battle. And in the depths of space, the Void Wraith watched, its hunger growing, its anticipation building. The endgame had begun, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Zaxxon stood before the celestial forge, his eyes closed as he focused his mind. The ancient Prothean technology thrummed with power, pulsing with an otherworldly light. He could feel the forge reaching out to him, its vast intelligence probing the depths of his consciousness. But as he prepared to initiate the merging process, a sudden wave of psychic energy slammed into him, staggering him back. The Void Wraith's assault had begun. Across the galaxy, minds cried out in agony as the Void Wraith's malevolent presence burrowed into their thoughts. Soldiers turned their weapons on their comrades, driven mad by the eldritch whispers that filled their heads. Civilians tore at each other in a frenzy of violence, their sanity shattered by the psychic onslaught. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Brown gripped the command console, his knuckles white as he fought to maintain his focus. Around him, crew members screamed and writhed, clutching their heads as the Void Wraith's influence took hold. "Sir, we're losing control," an officer shouted, his voice strained. "The fleet, it's tearing itself apart!" Brown gritted his teeth, drawing on every ounce of his iron will to resist the psychic assault. He could feel the Void Wraith's presence clawing at the edges of his mind, seeking to drag him down into madness. But he would not yield. Not now, not when they were so close to victory. "Rally the fleet," he barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Target the Sci-Fi ships and fire at will." On the surface of the Forge's planet, Commander Mitchell and his team fought for their lives as wave after wave of Sithari warriors descended upon them. The aliens moved with a manic ferocity, their eyes blazing with the Void Wraith's unholy influence. Lieutenant Reed stood at the forefront of the battle, his pulse rifle blazing as he cut down Sithari after Sithari. His movements were a blur, his reflexes honed to a razor's edge by years of combat. "Keep them back," he shouted, ejecting a spent power cell and slamming in a fresh one. "We have to buy Zaxxon more time." Dr. Clark crouched behind a rocky outcropping, her fingers flying over the controls of the Forge's energy matrix. The device was ancient, its systems complex and unfamiliar, but she worked with a desperate determination. She could feel the Void Wraith's psychic assault battering at her mind, seeking to break through the psychic dampener she wore, but she pushed the whispers aside, focusing on her task. Zaxxon stood at the heart of the Forge, his mind and body merging with the ancient machine. He could feel its power flowing through him, intertwining with his consciousness. Memories flashed before his eyes. The rise and fall of the Prothean Empire, the terrible war against the Void Wraith, the desperate plan to imprison the entity within the Doomsday device. And he saw the future that awaited if they failed, a galaxy consumed by darkness, every living being reduced to a puppet of the Void Wraith's malevolent will. With a final surge of effort, Zaxxon completed the merging process. The celestial forge blazed with blinding light, its energy surging outward in a wave of cosmic power. On the Sithari ships, warriors staggered and shook their heads, their eyes widening in horror as they realized what they had done. They turned on their former masters, joining forces with the human fleet to strike at the heart of the Void Wraith's power. Admiral Brown saw his chance. With a fierce battle cry, he led the combined might of the human and Sithari forces in a daring assault on the Void Wraith's stronghold. They breached the twisted realm of darkness and chaos, fighting their way through the eldritch horrors that guarded the Void Wraith's inner sanctum. And there, at the heart of the stronghold, they confronted the Void Wraith itself, a writhing mass of shadows and malevolence, its form shifting and twisting in ways that defied comprehension. But Zaxxon was there, his form blazing with the power of the Celestial Forge. He stood before the Void Wraith, a radiant avatar of cosmic might. With a single decisive blow, Zaxxon shattered the Void Wraith's physical form. The entity let out a howl of rage and despair as its essence was torn asunder, banished back to the dark realm from whence it came. The stronghold shuddered and collapsed, the twisted realm of the Void Wraith crumbling away into nothingness. The galaxy was saved, the threat of the ancient evil vanquished at last. But the victory had come at a great cost. Zaxxon, the last of the Protheans, had sacrificed himself to ensure the Void Wraith's defeat. His consciousness remained bound to the Celestial Forge, a eternal guardian against the darkness. As the dust settled and the survivors emerged from the ruins of the stronghold, Admiral Brown and his allies looked to the stars, their hearts heavy with the weight of their loss. But even in their grief, they knew that Zaxxon's sacrifice had not been in vain. The galaxy was free, its people united in the face of a common threat. And though the road ahead would be long and hard, they would face it together, guided by the light of hope and the memory of those who had given their lives to secure their future. The shattered remnants of the human fleet emerged from the wormhole over Earth, their hulls scorched and battered from the climactic battle with the Void Wraith. Cheers erupted from the weary crews as the blue-green jewel of their homeworld filled the viewports, a sight many had feared they would never see again. But even as the celebrations began, Admiral Brown stood on the bridge of the Retribution, his eyes haunted by the memories of those lost under his command. The weight of their sacrifices hung heavy on his shoulders, a burden he knew he would carry for the rest of his days. As the fleet limped into orbit, a transmission from Earth crackled over the comm. "Admiral Brown, this is President Thompson. On behalf of a grateful Earth and all her colonies, I extend our deepest thanks and congratulations for your victory against the Void Wraith. You and your brave crews are true heroes." Brown nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Madam President, but the real heroes are those who didn't come home. We must never forget their sacrifice." In the days that followed, the fleet was welcomed back with parades and celebrations across Earth and her colonies. Medals were awarded, speeches were made, and the names of the fallen were etched into monuments that would stand for generations. But for Admiral Brown, the fanfare rang hollow. He knew that his time had come to step aside, to pass the torch to a new generation of leaders who would guide humanity into the uncertain future. In a small ceremony aboard the Retribution, Brown handed command of the fleet to his trusted protégé, Commander Mitchell. The younger man stood tall and proud, his eyes gleaming with determination as he accepted the Admiral's star. "The Retribution is yours now, Captain Mitchell," Brown said, shaking his hand firmly. "Lead them well, keep them safe." Mitchell nodded, his voice steady. "I will, sir, I promise." As Brown watched Mitchell take his place on the bridge, he felt a flicker of hope amid the sorrow. The future was in good hands. Weeks later, in a shipyard high above Earth, a sleek new vessel took shape. Her lines were sharp and deadly, her hull plated with the most advanced armor humanity could devise. On her prow, a name was emblazoned in gleaming letters, UES Zaxxon. Captain Mitchell stood before the great ship, his crew assembled behind him. Dr. Clark, her eyes sharp and inquisitive, Lieutenant Commander Reed, his face lined with the scars of battle, and a host of new faces, young and eager to prove themselves among the stars. As they boarded the Zaxxon, ready to embark on a new mission into the uncharted depths of space, a somber message came through on the secure channel. Dr. Clark, her face grave, called Mitchell to the lab. "Captain, I've been analyzing the data we recovered from the Void Wraith stronghold," she said, her voice tight with worry, "and I found something disturbing." She brought up a holographic display, strange sigils and energy signatures swirling in the air. The Void Wraith. It wasn't acting alone. There are traces of an even more powerful entity, something that exists beyond the boundaries of our universe. And I think it's coming. Mitchell's blood ran cold as he stared at the display, the implications sinking in. The Void Wraith, the creature that had nearly brought the galaxy to its knees, had been only a herald of a greater threat that lurked in the darkness between the stars. As the Zaxxon cleared the shipyard and leapt into FTL, her crew standing united on the bridge, a new chapter in the story of the galaxy began to unfold, a chapter of exploration and discovery, of alliances forged and battles yet to be fought. And at the center of it all, the legacy of a fallen hero named Zaxxon, and the indomitable spirit of all those who called the stars their home. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.